Tonight, back in action. The nation's largest fuel pipeline is up and running again. The cost of the restart and how to prevent another attack.
Plus, crisis at the border.
We are all in agreement that the system is broken.
And a two-front war in Israel.
We will not tolerate this.
Leaves dozens dead amid the escalating violence.
And the case of the missing tiger. The big cat still on the loose 4 days after the striped pet was spotted in Houston. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
New protocols authorizing freedom from masks for some Americans. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
A game-changing announcement on masks. According to the CDC, fully vaccinated Americans no longer need to wear masks outdoors or indoors. And social distancing, too, is no longer needed.
But the new guidance comes with a warning. Americans who have not been vaccinated still need to wear masks. They're also required for anyone traveling on planes, buses, and trains. However, a word of caution: if conditions worsen, face masks or face coverings could come back.
If you are fully vaccinated, you can start doing the things that you had stopped doing because of the pandemic. We have all longed for this moment when we can get back to some sense of normalcy.
And the new guidance includes churches for those who are fully vaccinated. The CDC says masks are not needed at indoor, full-capacity worship services. If you'd like to get a vaccine, visit vaccines.gov. Meanwhile, Americans on the East Coast are still coming up empty at the gas pump. President Biden, though, says help is on the way.
That's because Colonial Pipeline says gas is flowing again, but it'll take time for all stations to get back online. CBN White House correspondent Eric Phillips has the story.
I know seeing lines at the pumps or gas stations with no gas can be extremely stressful, but this is a temporary situation.
Thursday, the president did what he could to urge calm.
How many gas stations have you tried?
8. This is my 6th. Everything is like out of gas.
In North Carolina, tensions hit a boiling point when a fight between a man and a woman broke out at the pump.
It's literally survival of the fittest right now.
The president reassuring Americans that help is on the way.
This morning, Colonial reported that fuel is beginning to flow to a majority of the markets that they service, and they should be reaching full operational capacity as we speak.
Biden saying his administration is taking several steps to speed it up, like lifting hour and weight restrictions for tanker trucks carrying gas, relaxing fuel standards in several states to allow suppliers more flexibility, and relaxing rules for pipeline operators so emergency personnel can get fuel flowing where possible.
The extraordinary measures the administration has taken, we estimate, sent enough gas to stations to fill the tanks of over 5 million vehicles in the last few days.
On the preventive side, the president signed an emergency executive order to improve cybersecurity by calling for federal agencies to work more closely with the private sector. As for the hack itself, the president says although Russia is not responsible, he has an expectation of its leaders.
We have been in direct communications with Moscow about the imperative for responsible countries to take decisive action against these ransomware networks.
Back at the pump,
6 gallons of gas for $35. That's absolutely ridiculous.
the president issuing this warning.
Do not, I repeat, do not try to take advantage of consumers during this time.
And that was Eric Phillips reporting. Well, here with us now is Ohio Congressman Bill Johnson. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. First off, how did this attack happen? And as a former job creator and someone who ran private businesses, how much does this worry you, particularly the reports of the $5 million payoff?
Hey, it worries me a lot. Anytime you pay off the bad guys to leave you alone, you're going down the wrong path. I spent 27 years in the Air Force. Nearly 35 to 40 years as an information technology professional. And I can tell you that cybersecurity is at the top of my list of concerns, and it needs to be at the top of the list for the president and lawmakers across this country. because the bad guys have demonstrated that they can get into our critical infrastructure. And this is not good, what they did.
So you've worked on legislation around cybersecurity on the Energy and Commerce Committee. Congressman, what part can Congress play in all of this in keeping the country safe?
Well, we've got to keep a focus on it, and we've got to make sure that the federal government and the agencies responsible for implementing cybersecurity protections, that they have the tools that they need. That's Congress's role, is to provision the agencies that are looking at this. But it's going to take an all-out effort. Look, computers work off of ones and zeros. And as long as they work off of ones and zeros, bad guys are going to be out there trying to get in. You've probably heard this before. Bad guys only have to be right once. We, the network managers, the agencies, we have to be right millions of times a second, because that's how many times a second they're probing our networks to try to get in. So these are not isolated situations. There are these, in essence, companies and organizations, both state-run and companies on the fringe in foreign countries, that are actively trying to get into our networks. We saw the SolarWinds hack not too long ago. This is another example of how vulnerable our critical infrastructure is.
Congressman Johnson, as an Air Force brat, we thank you for your service and all those who served in uniform. You just mentioned President Biden. Do you believe the president's plan to strengthen U.S. infrastructure adequately addresses cyber threats?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't think that the administration has a grasp on just how critically important cybersecurity is. You know, and what the president just finished in that little clip that you played, talking about the actions that the administration has taken. Well, there wasn't a lot of actions that the administration took to actually address the hack itself. The Colonial Pipeline Company they've been able to get that pipeline back up and operational. I do applaud what the president tried to do with relieving the pressure on 18-wheel truck drivers so that they can transport the gasoline by tanker and those kinds of things. But what the administration should be doing is focusing 100% of its cybersecurity energy on trying to find out who launched this attack and then holding them accountable.
All right, Congressman Bill Johnson, from Ohio, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, to the southern border, Republicans insist President Biden's immigration policies are responsible for creating the current crisis.
And now one GOP lawmaker is pledging to introduce a bill this week that would reinstate Trump's immigration protocols detaining migrants who cross illegally in Mexico until their court date. CBN senior Washington correspondent Tara Merchant joins us now with more. Tara?
John and Jenna, since President Biden took office, illegal crossings have gone up every month. In April, a 900% increase over this time last year. The Homeland Security Secretary in the hot seat.
We are dedicated to an orderly, safe, and humane immigration system.
A tense hearing as Senators Preston and Mayorkas defended the administration's response to the surge of migrants flooding the southern border.
Are you disappointed that President Biden and Vice President Harris have not taken the time to come to the border?
Absolutely not.
In April alone, nearing 179,000, much of the focus on the record numbers of children making the journey alone and arriving in the U.S. faster than they can be processed and placed in sponsor homes.
You said as recently as this week that the border is closed. Is that still your position today? Border is closed?
Yes, it is.
Don't you think you bear any responsibility for the current crisis by telling the world earlier this year that the border was open?
I've never said that the border is open, and I've never believed.
We're not telling you not to come. How would you parse that?
I don't recall saying that. I don't believe.
You don't recall saying that?
That's correct, Senator.
Images of packed facilities are pressuring the administration to act. While down slightly from an all-time high in March, more than 17,000 unaccompanied minors crossed in April, 6,000 more than this time last year. Under Biden's relaxed rules, migrants are likely in the U.S. for good.
We are addressing the root causes of migration for the Northern Triangle countries, addressing the reasons why families send their children in the first place.
As Republicans blame the surge on the rollback of Trump's border policies, Mayorkas, along with Democrats, say they want to address the reasons migrants keep coming.
And Mayorkas has also been touting less packed border facilities, but many have been moved on to other facilities run by Health and Human Services, where the numbers, John and Jenna, keep going up.
All right, thank you, Tara. Coming up, the escalating violence in Israel now expanding into a multi-front war, the latest on the growing unrest. After this.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN News Watch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN News Watch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Well, welcome back. Turning overseas, the fighting in the Middle East expanding tonight with rocket fire from southern Lebanon targeting Israel, according to the Associated Press.
Terror groups continue to launch rockets into central and southern Israel, opening a multi-front war with growing unrest between Arabs and Jewish populations. CBN's Chris Mitchell has more.
Hamas and other terror groups have fired more than 1,500 rockets at Israeli civilians in just 3 days, while Israel's Iron Dome anti-missile system has shot down more than 90% of those rockets. A number have hit Israeli communities like Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Petah Tikva, killing 7 Israelis, including a 6-year-old boy. Israel responding with hundreds of surgical strikes in Gaza to stop the deadly barrages. Many of Hamas's rockets are supplied by Iran, leading 44 Republican senators to call on President Biden to suspend its nuclear talks with the Islamic regime. President Biden spoke at length with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and affirmed Israel's right to defend itself. Israel is also seeing the worst Jewish-Arab violence in at least 20 years. Arabs have rioted in several Israeli towns, and Jews have attacked Arabs, in one instance, on live TV. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the violence on both sides.
Nothing justifies the lynching of Arabs by Jews, and nothing justifies the lynching of Jews by Arabs. We will not tolerate this. This violence is not us.
And as the world watches this escalation involving Israelis, Arabs, and Palestinians, more questions about what led to the outbreak. Some are tracing it to the eastern Jerusalem neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah, where clashes have led to protests and calls for cutting diplomatic ties between Israel and Jordan. The seeds of the feud go back decades. In 1948, Jordan took control of eastern Jerusalem, including Sheikh Jarrah. Jews living here were expelled or even killed. Then Jordan and the United Nations gave the area to Arab families. Almost 20 years later, during the Six-Day War, Israel took the area back when it reunited Jerusalem.
My father took the house from the Jordanian in 1956. There is agreement between Jordanian and UNRWA. Jordanian give the land, and the UNRWA built a 28 house for 28 refugee family.
Now, after 65 years, 4 families with more than 70 people face eviction. Jewish Israelis plan to move in their place. But Israel argues the Jewish claim on the land goes back long before 1948.
We have to know the history of this place. We call it Shimon HaTzadik. The land around the tomb of Shimon was purchased by the Jewish community, dated back to 1840.
According to Jerusalem's deputy mayor, the two sides had agreed to a legal compromise, whereby the Palestinian residents would be protected tenants, paying a minimal rent without fear of eviction.
Ultimately, we're talking about a property dispute. One of the parties who can prove ownership and another party who are seen legally as squatters because they moved into this house after 1948. And now we have a property claim that, of course, has been conflagrated by everybody in the West.
Hassan Nahum tells CBN News that the residents were then told to abandon the compromise.
The Palestinian Authority sent their lawyers. The minute they were involved, the minute this became political, they had no interest in helping people stay in their homes. They wanted people to get kicked out publicly in order for Israel to get reprimanded by the entire world.
David Cohen, member of a Jewish family in the neighborhood, has seen a difference among his Arab neighbors.
I can tell you that in the last 2 weeks, suddenly everything changed. They see me and every person that looks Jewish as an enemy, as someone who's really dangerous.
Cohen told CBN News of a conversation with one of his Arab friends.
And he said, at this time we're photographed. They're paying attention to us and checking us. It's forbidden for me to have a good contact with you.
Israel maintains it's working to calm the situation, such as delaying a Supreme Court hearing on the issue. It's also calling for international pressure on the Palestinian Authority to stop the incitement and publicly call for an end to Palestinian violence and terrorism. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Sheikh Jarrah, Jerusalem.
Great reporting, Chris. Thank you. And when we come back, jobless claims fall to the lowest level since the pandemic started. What that means for the economy.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Saturday night at 6 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, Explore effective remedies for sleep apnea and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Welcome back. Tonight, jobless claims are hitting a new pandemic low. Americans are ramping up spending and businesses are reopening as America appears to be turning a corner in the fight against COVID-19. New weekly jobless claims fell below 475,000 for the first time since March 2020. Unemployment filings, according to the Labor Department, dropping to 473,000 last week. The decline comes as employers struggle to find workers, last month adding only 266,000 jobs.
For President Biden's multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure plan. Today, in an Oval Office meeting with top congressional leaders from both sides of the political aisle, the president said he and the lawmakers are sincere about getting to a compromise.
What we're going to try to do is figure out what we can agree constitutes infrastructure from each of our perspectives, and then see whether or not we're in a position that how much we want to fund it above the baseline. The baseline meaning what we spent last year. And then talk about how to proceed from there.
In another White House meeting with congressional leaders yesterday, Republicans drew a red line for the president, insisting no new taxes to pay for a plan.
Well, for more now, let's bring in David Brody, CBN News chief political analyst. David, let's start with those jobless claims on the heel of that bad jobs report last month. How do you read this? Good news or bad news for President Biden?
Oh, it's definitely good news for sure. And, you know, back to that jobs report before that, everybody was pretty surprised that figure was so low. I think it was, 266,000 jobs when they thought it was going to be close to 1 million. I think they've revised it since, or they will be revising it. So, look, this is good news. And we shouldn't be surprised. The economy is opening up. Society is opening up. People are going back to work, so to speak. And, you know, that should come as no surprise. It's good news for Biden. Let's also be honest. It's not something Biden necessarily did with his policies. It just happens to be that, you know, the CDC is relaxing guidance. And because of that, here we are.
Yeah. David, so the president, he has repeatedly said that he's committed to compromise. Is a compromise on the president's plan possible when the two sides, they can't even agree on what the definition of infrastructure is?
Well, Jenna, he says he's open to compromise, but he doesn't do the fill in the blank part afterwards. And here, let me do it for you and for Joe Biden and everybody else. Absolutely, he would say, I want compromise up until a point. And so the question is, what is that financial trigger point exactly? Republicans are at $800 billion on infrastructure alone. And of course, we know the Democrats are not going to go for $800 billion. So this idea that there is going to be compromise, let's be honest, it's going to be over the $800 billion. If that's where Republicans are coming in, remember, Republicans were coming in around $550 billion. Now they're up to $800 billion. How far do they go? That's really where the compromise potentially could come in. We might not see 2.whatever trillion, but my sense is we'll definitely see a compromise, but it'll probably be lower than what the Democrats want, but a lot higher than what Republicans want.
If they'll raise taxes, do you think they'll go, disregard that red line that Republicans drew and just go ahead and raise taxes?
Well, that might be a bit trickier. It depends, Jenna. That's a really good question. A lot of it depends on budget reconciliation. In other words, are Democrats going to just go ahead and push this thing through anyhow? And I think it depends on what the final package is. If it's large enough where there is this actual compromise, let's say 1.2 trillion, 1.3 trillion, then they won't do budget reconciliation, and then they'll have to figure out a way to pay for it, and that'll be another tricky part. So I think we're far from the finish line here. I know they want to see the finish line sometime by July 4th or so. But if they're making a target date of July 4th, then that feels more like Labor Day.
David, tomorrow the House Republican Conference votes to replace Liz Cheney as conference chair. Any predictions on how that vote will play out?
Well, at least Stefanik will get it. I've talked to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I've talked to Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. Both are not thrilled that Elise Stefanik is going to get the leadership position because she doesn't have a very conservative record, but they're willing to play ball at this point. I talked to Matt Schlapp, the head of the American Conservative Union. He admits she doesn't have the most stellar conservative record, but apparently she has made promises to Matt Schlapp and other top conservatives on the Hill that she will vote very conservative and just watch her on pro-life, on guns, etc. So we'll see. We'll keep a watchful eye.
All right, David, thank you very much.
You bet.
Up next, police and neighbors on the prowl for a ferocious feline, the mystery behind a tiger on the loose, and its connection to a criminal suspect.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link. Tuesday morning at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Finally tonight, the case of the missing tiger.
Jenna, it's certainly a story that has people on high alert. 4 days after someone spotted a Bengal tiger in a Houston neighborhood, the big cat is still on the loose.
It's somebody's pet.
Authorities are still searching for the striped feline caught on video Sunday evening. No word on where the tiger came from or how it even got in that neighborhood. Houston outlaws tiger ownership in the city. In other areas across Texas, though, it is legal for private citizens to own tigers.
Your backyard? It's crazy. All right.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
Have a great evening.